Time to paint again. Let's paint. I'm Wade Hughes, longtime resident here at Frankfort, Kentucky. And we will begin with the distance. And we'll put it right up there. We're using oil today. Time to time we switch from oil to acrylic, back to oil. Just whatever the mood and temperament calls for. Let's see if we can do some kind of a scene with an old cabin in it today. Folks are kind of enamored at times with old cabins. So we'll try to accommodate that. Cabin in the hills. I always love those cabins in the hills. And we mix our paint, but there's nothing to it. Throw a little of this and that in it. And always explain to your audience the colors that you're using so it'll be more confusing. I had an art instructor some years ago that insisted that for the sky, along with a white and whatever color, if it wasn't a stormy sky, you should use two different blues. Didn't explain to me, to my recollection, what that might mean. You never ask your instructor the reason for anything. He might not give you an A, and it's not worth the risk. All right, and we keep going. A few piles of color here and there. And just move the brush around a lot. The audience expects a lot of brush movement. And we'll throw a little something in there to satisfy your audience. Most of your painting anyway is for your audience. And that's what you're trying so hard to satisfy, is the easily satisfied audience. Now we'll go over on this side. Sort of clean our brush out. Most good art occurs when you're cleaning out your brush. Okay, you might want to bear that in mind, I doubt it. All right, and we keep going. Just keep cleaning out your brush. And you would be surprised sometimes what pops up while you're cleaning out your brush. Of course, you don't want it too clean. You might have to start all over again. All right. Now, we want to leave a place here somewhere for our cabin. But if we don't leave enough, we just make a smaller cabin. All right. Dip our brush in little spirits over there. Mineral oil or something of that nature. Doesn't really matter. And some kind of ridiculous colors there. And run along with it. And it might be that we want to create a sunset. Sort of top the hills with a little tinge of color. But you don't want it to bleed unless it's the scene of a great battleground. And things often need to be peaceful. And you keep in mind the cabin that you might later create. Take a little of that. We really need a darker red, but we can take care of that. Make it whatever we want to make it, as long as the brush doesn't shed too much hair. Let me go up there now. Don't think anyone's ever seen a tree that color, but see how quickly you can change that. Very good. And very good. Now, let's get ready for our cabin. We probably need to go out and cut the logs first. Okay. Now, let's think of our cabin setting up here like this. All right. Oops. And we'll put the roof. They didn't always build cabins in that order by starting with the roof first, but what do we care? Evidently not much. Now, let us have us a nice chimney. I have a friend that calls it chimney, so that's quite all right. Don't get upset over what someone calls something. Got your rocks down there, okay. And if you need a purple chimney, we've got one well underway. All righty. Now, we'll need sort of a brake line here in case someone wants to brake hard. Okay, and just it doesn't matter what color you get in there. You might have a little residue color on your brush that just suddenly turns up, and you can consider that a moment of learning, or as they're saying more and more these days, a teachable moment. And one more teachable moment, and I'd say we're out of business. All right, let's change the complexion of things here just a little bit. I'll put some shadows across there. By now I'm sure you've discovered that art is mostly shadows anyway. All right. As we just kind of move things around a little bit. And let's say this had a nice porch on it. Nice porch. Many of the cabins had porches on it. Great place to set your rocking chair or churn the milk on. Yeah, that was a chore around the farm in the old days. Not only milking, but when it came time to churn. Yeah. All right. Laying our background there now. The art is mostly background anyway. So we'll come in here and just put the outline of some stones. Oh, you come here and just get a tinge and hint. You might call it previews of coming attractions. Okay. In 1947, I used to go to the movies. When they got done with the movie, they would show what was coming on. They would call it previews of coming attractions. So that is where I acquired that idiomatic expression. Good, now I just getting ready for greater things up ahead. Now let's see, we haven't used that color much, so we will start with using that. Bring it along, okay. Now, let's see, you want to pause for identification now and then and do your best to recall what it was you were going to do. If you've already made a pledge to the audience, that's important that you have some recollection. And there's the door. A lot of people used doors in those days, pioneer days, to get in and out of the place. That's before they really learned what they were for. Okay. Good, then we got the door. It's good to know those things, because when supper time comes, you want to be sure that you're ready. Now we put a different hue and cast here, and windows were good to look out at. Yes, now you probably learned that the top of the window may have more shadows in it. And while we're doing windows, let's put one over here. Now we had a window in our old log house about there. Now, see, we got little mineral spirits here to just sort of thin things down with a little bit. Yeah, the right kind of mineral spirits will thin quite a few things down. All right. Now we'll get ready for the little, where the cabin sits on old terra firma. All right, now, let's see. Let's do a little more on our chimney. See, it's nothing to making those chimney rocks. And down here, of course, you'll want some shadows. Never a problem with shadows. Now we need to probably straighten that line up a little there. And you remember how they had those old boards that were called ribbon boards. You took what was called a froe and a big mallet, and you cut a tree down and used the mallet to, after you got the log split. They had a fancy thing called, instead of a wedge, it was called a glut. The ones I've seen, the best ones were made out of dogwood tree. And you drive those things in your tree log that you're splitting, and if you try to go too far when you hit that, it becomes like a energized cannonball coming out of there. Many a worker in those days had lumps on their head from that. If you got a little too anxious and didn't get the log riven enough and put your glut in and hit it with a maul, it sort of struck back. And real widow makers. And put a little facing on the door there. And let's do a little bit for around the yard. Right. Put a little dark there. A little dark there, yes. And let's work over there that a little bit. Now, for the ends of our logs, let's put the light above, where the light is just breaking on top of that. In the event you brought your smaller brush, which you probably discarded years ago, maybe this isn't quite small enough, but Artist needs most of the time to mourn the loss of something he forgot to bring or sold at a yard sale or something. All right, now we'll move over here and get a little of this and a little of that and put under, and see how that suggests the bottom of the log where those shadows live. All right, and let's see, while we're there, we could begin to put in the old plank boards. Right there, sawed in the old sawmill. My. We went to where an old sawmill had been many years previously, and they still had a big pile of rotting sawdust. And I clearly remember my father telling me not to get about that or put my hands in it. But, you know, being a child, you're quick to forget. And so I put my hands in it, and what did I come up with? Snake eggs. They were just spongy. And in my curiosity, I asked my father what they were. He had no further problems with me disobeying at that juncture. All right, now let's see here. Let's suggest our log here, here and there. That's the way you think about that. And the corner. Oh, we're not at the corner of the house, are we? How quick we forget. All right, so we drag that along through there. Now, let's make our upper logs. And there we are. There'll be more shadows living up there. Very good. Over the last 30 years, I've gone back to the hills where my mother used to teach school and visited. There's a few of those old log houses, if you call it still standing. They're in a very bad shape of disrepair. And I took Mother when she was above 90 years of age. And we went up to that abandoned land and took them lunch. And she showed me where she used to teach school and those many, many stories that she was so replete with. We had a lunch together in front of the old house that long, long years ago abandoned. The chimney had fallen in. She said, "Son, we'll have to come back here again." But time didn't permit and her health didn't permit that. But there's a lot of nostalgia for many people whose background comes from a rural area, the old cabins. They were a scene of both pain and pleasure. Usually had an old dog laying around. We didn't have a dog, we had cats. And the blacker the cat, the better they were at keeping the mouse population under control. But unfortunately, the blacker they were, the more they would eat the little chickens. I may have already told you those stories. You'd be surprised how the 12 gauge would scatter a cat. And my father had just not much sympathy for a cat that would kill the chickens. And it was a source of great anguish for me. Those days have long slipped into the past. He was born on May 20, 1878. So he was up in years when I came into being. All right. The old cabin. All right. And we better put a few planks living in there. Okay. Now underneath, let's see, we're getting a little, sometimes you need some mineral spirits. Okay. Oh yeah, we were going to go under here, weren't we? Forgot all about it. Good, put a little dark over here and dark there, and let that suggest a stone. And we could do this. Lots of those old cabins had the Z braces on the door. And our old house was an 8-room log house. My people kept the post office from 1909 till 1932, year after I was born. And on the old entrance to the post office was an old placard that said, "Remember Belgium." He was told about, in those days, how the young men would leave their sweethearts and march off to war. Many of them volunteered. Many of the mountaineers are very patriotic, as you know, and distinguished themselves in the service of our country. Mother had a brother killed in the Argonne Forest of France in MacArthur's Rainbow Division, so Mac was around at an early time. Now we might want to put just a little light playing over here on the edge of the post with more of it as we move downward. All right, your highlights. That's what my instructor called them, highlights, but I didn't bother to ask what he meant by it. It's best not to harass your instructor with a lot of, cloud the issue with a lot of facts. You don't want to do that. All right. Now that just can't stay unbleached muslin over there all the time. So we could do lots of different things over there, most of them wrong. But let's select a brush that we haven't used yet. And most of art is trying to impress your audience anyway. And we'll begin to do just that. Sometimes you run it up, sometimes you run it down. And it doesn't matter which way you run it, just as long as it turns out all right. Okay. And we'll Get a little of this and a little of that. And treat it thusly. Kind of lay a little background. Move the brush around here and there. Right. You can't go wrong moving your brush. All right, now we'll prepare here a bit. Back and forth, up and down and all around, figure eights. Not important, just keep that brush moving. All right. Now, we could do the same on the other side, couldn't we? All right, so we go in quest of some pigment, which often occurs in your paints. You need to be on the lookout for it. All right, we keep going. Great. Now this area needs to be closed here. And you can stir it this way and that. Create fantastic shapes that you don't need at all. But most of art is shapes anyway. Yeah, just kind of stir it around a little bit. There's no way you can make a mistake. You can let the grandchildren do it for you when you play checkers or something. All right, let's just darken that up a little there. All right, looks a little bright. And you're just creating background. Most of art is background anyway. Now, let's see on the hillside yonder. Put that brush away and get ready for some fantastic things to occur. We could have arrived at that juncture sooner, but it wasn't in the tea leaves. All right. Now we got to stir it up, much like you bake a cake. And then we'll come there and I don't want to make a tree, but some rough terrain. All right. You've got lots of colors and hues that you can go with. Most of them will be incorrect. But what do we care? As long as we're having fun, that's the thing. As long as you're having fun, yeah. Look at that, look at that, look at that. All right. Now the fun should probably not all occur on the same side. You want to reserve some from the other side. And we can go up here. And you remember that great large tree that grew there that always threatened to fall down on your head in the severe storms? Okay, it's not hard to remember those things, is it? And we'll just let it grow there if it likes. And you want to throw a little something up there to suggest. Most of art, good art, is just suggestion anyway. So let's see. Now here's a color we haven't had much to do with. All right. Let's come here a little bit, clean some of it out, and then go back here. All right, and get some more different colors there and mix together until you've nothing but a conglomerate. That's what we've been looking for all the while. Look at the forest we're creating there. Come on, right now. And we'll go back here, do something that we shouldn't do. Okay. Maybe there's something grew up there. Now here's something that we can do. Again, something like making good candy. Yeah. And we'll tip like the sun is playing there a bit, right? And all right, now we'll come down to here. Okay. Bring it right over on your porch if you want to. And then, Since you destroyed the tree trunk, no problem to replace the tree trunk. Very simple. Now you notice you've just wiped out your porch. Well, in that case, just one thing to do, and that's put it back on. See how easy that is? Porch back on, and you discovered that it's going to fall if you don't have a post. So there's your post, not very straight, but many of them weren't. Now we can highlight that with the edge of our fan brush, like so. Like a little light is playing there, and while we're at it, let's define the edge of that tree, and we'll choose a little different color there and just blend it in. Look at that, look at that. My. Absolutely amazing. Now let's return, sort of like MacArthur when he said, I shall return. We come over here, put us some terrain up there. We don't want it too steep. The children, when they play, fall off. No, we don't want that. There wasn't a lot of playing many times around the house. And obviously, let's note something here. Unworthy of note. Now you lost your brush. And there's one. Yeah, you always have to, most of the time you need a brush. Now we come back here and put the back of the cabin in. We could have done that earlier, but we didn't. So now we find out about how far it goes. Never mind that you've got green in there. We can turn that into anything you like. And probably some things you wouldn't like. Well, here we go now, watch this. There we go. Put the chinking in before we put the log in, okay? That's not the way you do it, but that's the way we're doing it today, all right? Now, what about the tops of our logs that we discussed before? Look at that. Just a little twist of the brush. Most of art is just a twist of the brush anyway. All right, now here we go with those old boards that lived along in there. Many a knothole in them. They would cure out, and the wasps, that's how they made their paper nest. Was the old things around the farm. Hornets, my goodness, hornets. Don't know when I'd thought of them. And again, that's where the light plays there. Now we're going to just highlight that a bit. Kind of circle it. Now what about, we've got green grass in where the log should be, but believe me, that's no problem. That is no problem. Watch this. You just come between there. There's your log. You haven't traded the old cross for the crown. You just traded green grass for a log. All right, here we go now. We'll do a little highlight up there. Okay. And we should have some orange, so let's see if we can make a little. Oranges in this case are often better than apples. All right, a little chinking in there. It looked like somebody bled there, didn't it? All right, now, our chimney lacks a little believability, and you will want a chimney not only with great validity, but believability. All right, there now. That's not much better. Now let's get our brush the narrow way and put a crack here, as often was between those old boards. And there we are. You got to have a place for the wasps and hornets and the packed saddles, honeybees, lizards. Oh, I could tell you a few stories if we get time about the lizards. They just seem to live around to run up your britches leg and scare the living daylights out of her. Yeah. They never seem to care much where a little boy was scared or not. I really think they had a very distorted sense of humor. You know, some had nice little stripes around them, like my dad had a 33 Ford. It had a little red stripe around it. And he had us paint the car every year with the brushes. And he would tell us to be very careful and not get anything on the red stripe. All right, now over here we are. He sold the car 13 years later for more than he bought it for, paid for it when he bought. The man looked at it and said, "My, that would be a beautiful old car if it wasn't for all that hand paint on it." Dad said, "You don't see any rust on it, do you?" As a matter of fact, there was none there. Now, we'll put another row of shingles up there. You always want to get your shingles on before the wind blows them off. Okay. Many of these old shingle roofs did very well. Some of them would leak. That was no problem. You'd set something, bucket or something. Or maybe if it was in the season with the pumpkins, you could hollow a pumpkin top out and let the drip in that. Okay. Now we do want something over here to bring this edge of the porch away from that green lawn there. And we can do that different ways. One way to be just tear the porch down completely. But if you don't want to do anything just that radical, you can choose less radical means. All right, now, we probably need some more shadows right up here. And Payne's gray is all right, mixed with a few other things. And then whatever you have left over, you can go back to your shingles again. Now, we absolutely have to do something about this yard, don't we? But I'll tell you, before we do anything about the yard, you can never tell who in the family, might be grandma or somebody, or granddad, or uncle, could be an aunt that's on the water pills, and you need to make allowance for water pills and those that are on water pills. Now let's make this side quite dark against that. Now we need a door. All these need doors. In case of fire, you needed a door. Watch this. See how that works? They make a door there. Now, for the very front of this little building, look at that, look at that. See how that goes? And you got to the cutest little outhouse. That's one thing that modern life does not afford. There's those fantastic outhouses of the past. All right, now, that we didn't need at all, so We're going to come back over the top. That got it. That did it. Really did it, didn't it? All right, then a little suggestion of light there. Then, they didn't often have a picket fence around those things, but why not a little picket fence? All right, and let's put a little light breaking right on the top of that, and then you're ready for them. Let's touch that a little bit over there. Okay. Most of art is just touch-up work anyway. See how you can do that now. Let's put us a little dark right under here. Yeah. And under our logs. Yeah, just a little sweep there. Fine. Good. Now, let us take a larger brush so we don't consume the whole day with the front yard. We can do that. And just sort of lean back and get you some color. Dip your brush in some spirits. Proper ones, always the proper ones. You don't want improper spirits. Not while you're painting, you know. And just hope they hold out. And back and forth, back and forth. The idea is to cover your canvas. And you can take it back and forth, up and down. You can take different colors. You can throw a little red in it. You can throw, it's not time for the yellow, but in case it was getting a little concerned about not being used. And we just keep back and forth. Don't forget there's right up the center in the back of this painting, there's a brace, a piece of wood. And if you're not careful, you'll have that showing through by print. But you could always grow a tree or something there and kind of hide it, your mistake. Most of good art is hidden mistakes anyway. All right, now. All right, there's the old cabin we talked about. Many of the cabins stood right on the ground. Martin houses and bird houses often were in the air, but most of the cabins had their feet rather firmly planted on the ground. Now, maybe it was in the fall of the year, autumn even, and you can use up a little of your excess paint there. Good. Right. Now, let's come back with, now it's been a while back that I think I told you about having such a good weed brush, but it expired. And I'm laboring now without that particular brush. And it's very sad sort of existence without it. But one has to do what one has to do. And we'll work on our yard. Most of those settlers didn't have a lawnmower anyway. And they didn't have to worry much about it. Of course, there were chickens and geese and guineas and cows and horses and hens and roosters, that sort of thing. Some of the yards in the old cabins had no grass at all. The animals and the people walking across kept it all worn down to the earth. As a matter of fact, many of the cabins just had earth floors. You didn't have to worry a lot about the design or that thing. They had their advantages in those days as well as disadvantages. And we keep going, yeah. Just find somewhere to spray. Most good art is just paint spread around certain ways anyhow. And there we are, look at that. Now we can boast of a yard. We have a yard now. Now let's work on yonder's tree and make it just a bit more exciting. Okay, throw a little paint here and there, just enough to confuse the eye. A little. And now those nice weeds that grew back there, where all the wildlife lived. And your nose itches, and that has to be treated. Now, there's probably been a sleeve been put through that. Looks like a sleeve print. And I promise Shirley I will not get this garment any paint on it, but sometimes I don't always live up to expectations, and it always troubled me a lot. And we're getting ready to make something here. When you stir frantically, it's always a good indication that something is about to occur. We're not sure what. Okay, but let's try a little of that and a little of this. That looks better now. See where the sleeve has been on the post? Don't worry about the sleeve on the post. Look at that. You're sort of glad the sleeve was on the post. You may try it again. Look how easy that is. You might want to get your paint stirrer out. Get things going. Now let's grow something here. Cabin in the woods almost seems to be cabin in the woods, don't it? Now let's see, let's put something over here. Maybe the goats haven't been around lately and the foliage has grown up. The lady of the house has been after her husband to get all those growth out of the cabin before he comes right in the kitchen. But you know how those pioneers were. They didn't always do as they were told. At that time, they had not learned that. Really, it's more of a learned art than it is genetic. All right, now let's throw a little white in there. Makes a very disturbing color. And most of art is disturbing color anyway. Let's see what we can do right here. Well, I didn't mean to disturb it quite that much, but since we've made it, we can use it. If you make up a color, try to use it, because they just don't, used colors don't go well at yard sales, okay? Now, as you can tell, we're preparing for something here. What we're doing is just preparation. We're not sure what. Now, I should make we make the road come in, the path come in over here. There was always a path to those buildings too, but today's program we may not have time to get it all the paths in. Oh yes. And we just keep mixing and stirring. Most of good art is mixing and stirring. And watch this. We need it a little darker than that, so don't worry about that. Let's throw a little of this color in there and see if that doesn't make it darker. How's that now? Isn't that absolutely fantastic? It doesn't quite fall under amazing. It's probably just fantastic. And do you know what? Oh, something just occurred to me. But many of those old cabins had picket fences, and it is a joy to build a picket fence. Watch this. You'll want to do this. See how that is? Those are picket fences. We had a neighbor when I was up in Illinois whose name was Pickett. He was in his 90s. He used to ride with his grandson on his motorcycle, put his old crutch or cane, whichever he used, across the top of his lap, and away they would go. All right, there's there. And then they had a couple braces along there. And since we have such fun with picket fences, why not be able to? We need a dark background though. There we are. Right. All right. Picket fence. I see how easy it is to build a picket fence. You can get carried away on a picket fence. Oh yeah. Remember the days when we used to CB on the radios, on CB radios? One fella said that he was driving so fast, he told his buddy he was driving so fast that the telephone poles looked like a picket fence going by. So his friend said, you're gonna have somebody looking for you if you're gonna broadcast like that. And he could have been correct. Now, let's throw a little more reddish hue in our fence down here. It looks like it's very pale. And everyone doesn't always like a pale picket fence. They didn't have a lot of paints those days. Okay, now, let's throw a little dark shadows behind these, all right? That. Make that picket fence come right to you. Look at that. All right. We really needed a narrower brush, but what do we care? What do we care? Now that should be a little taller, a little higher, sort of to match that one over there. See how we can do that? No way you can miss on a picket fence. No, now let's take a lighter color where the light is just having fun on the top there. Look. Let's see, that's not the right hue we were looking for. Ah, look at that, look at that. Simply awful, isn't it? If your painting has promise of turning out to be successful, don't worry about it. If you'll keep working at it, you can ruin it. Yeah, okay, now, we don't need to leave this bottom like that. We probably didn't need to begin it like that, but watch this. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah. We're gonna have today's episode almost completed here in a little while. Then it's the time to call your neighbors in and let them begin their praise of your abilities with the brush. And the phone, when it rings again, in all probability will be the art studio at some great city wanting to make an acquisition of your work. Art studios are like that. Art studios are like that. Now, if you just wound up with a little extra, now don't mess up what you already did. Now, we might just throw a little something there now and then to break up the monotony. And if we had a thin brush, we would, there we are, suggest boards up and down through there. Now what do we do for a doorknob there? That will answer for a doorknob. And you survey your work. All right. And then let's put a chair here. You can't expect folks just to lean up against a post all the time. You gotta have a chair for them. And just throw in lots of chairs there. Chair. Some of the old timers called them chairs. Well, accommodate them with chairs if that's what it takes. We goof that, or we can ungoof it. That's a good art term. And we'll suggest that. And I would say that we're going to call that completed, or call it done, either which way you prefer. Look at that. Look at that. And so my dad used to say they'll be ascending for you everywhere. Oh, yes. So there we are. Let's paint.